Chosen One, this message is designed as a clear and structured explanation of what many describe as both a physical and spiritual turning point. In recent discussions across faith-based health and wellness communities, there has been increasing emphasis on the connection between what we consume and the way we prepare ourselves for transformation. The original framing of this teaching is deeply symbolic, but when rewritten in neutral professional terms, it becomes a call to examine how nourishment, both physical and spiritual, plays a decisive role in moments of breakthrough. The central idea being expressed is that many people are currently sensing exhaustion, dizziness, or unexplained weakness. From one perspective, these might be explained as common physical symptoms, but within the spiritual framework of this narrative, they are treated as signals, indicators that the body and spirit are requesting a reset. Instead of dismissing these signals as ordinary stress or fatigue, the Chosen One is asked to interpret them as part of a larger call to alignment. The urgency in this message stems from the belief that breakthrough, whether personal, professional, or spiritual, is often preceded by preparation. Just as an athlete prepares before entering competition, or as students prepare before sitting for examinations, those seeking transformation must prepare themselves physically and spiritually. Food and nourishment in this context are not simply about sustaining energy. They are symbols of readiness. They represent the choice to fuel the body and spirit with what is beneficial rather than what is draining. This script highlights three primary elements of nourishment considered sacred. In many traditions, honey, grains such as wheat, barley, and quinoa, and bone broth. Each of these carries historical, cultural, and even scientific significance. Taken together, they are presented not as superstition, but as a structured call to renewal, with an emphasis on a 15 to 20-day period of consistency. To begin, honey is often described as one of the oldest natural medicines in human history. References to honey appear in ancient Egyptian, Greek, and biblical texts. Beyond its symbolism as sweetness and abundance, honey has known antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and antioxidant properties. Within this narrative, honey is not treated merely as a food, but as a sacred bridge, a reminder that the earth provides natural substances capable of restoring energy, soothing the spirit, and encouraging renewal. For the Chosen One, consuming raw, unprocessed honey is portrayed as an act of respect for both body and spirit. It is described as fuel for transformation, the golden thread linking ancient wisdom with modern healing. Yet the script also points out that not all honey carries the same weight. Processed, heated, or diluted honey loses much of its natural complexity. This is why raw, aged honey is emphasized. Symbolically, it represents purity, uncompromised nourishment that can ignite vitality in its simplest form. Practically, it provides enzymes and compounds believed to support immune function and healing. Thus, honey becomes the first signal food, carrying both scientific credibility and deep spiritual resonance. The second category of nourishment comes through sacred grains, particularly wheat, barley, and quinoa. Grains have been foundational in human diets for thousands of years. They are not simply sources of carbohydrates. They provide essential nutrients, proteins, and fiber that sustain health and energy. In many cultures, grains are associated with grounding, stability, and continuity. They represent not only sustenance, but also the cycle of growth and renewal. Wheat, for instance, has historically been tied to ideas of abundance and blessing. Barley has long been viewed as a purifier, often used in cleansing rituals or diets. Quinoa, while relatively newer in global awareness, has been cultivated for millennia in South America and is celebrated for its high protein content and complete amino acid profile. Together, these grains symbolize balance, stability, cleansing, and strength. Within the context of transformation, they are framed as building blocks, foods that prepare both body and mind for what comes next. By emphasizing a 15 to 20-day period of eating these grains consistently, the script suggests a kind of ritual reset. This is not portrayed as diet culture or a temporary trend, but as a structured commitment. The chosen one is invited to treat this as sacred discipline, a time to align daily choices with long-term vitality. The symbolism is clear. By consuming grains that have sustained civilizations for generations, you reconnect with continuity, stability, and renewal. The third form of nourishment is bone broth. Historically, bone broth has been prepared in countless cultures as a restorative food. Its slow cooking process extracts minerals, collagen, and amino acids that support the body's tissues, joints, and immune system. Modern nutritionists often confirm that bone broth contributes to gut health, which in turn affects overall well-being. Within this spiritual framework, bone broth is treated as more than physical nourishment. It is a symbol of deep internal restoration. Bone broth represents healing that begins at the unseen levels of the body: the joints, the gut, the connective tissue. Just as spiritual healing often begins at unseen levels of the soul. Drinking bone broth regularly is framed as a return to ancestral wisdom, where nothing was wasted, and food was valued not just for survival, but for its ability to restore and strengthen. In this script, bone broth becomes the emblem of resilience. It reminds the chosen one that even when depleted, renewal is possible when you return to foundational sources of strength. These three elements, honey, sacred grains, and bone broth, form the triad of nourishment that the chosen one is urged to embrace. But the message goes beyond food. The call here is for attentiveness. Symptoms like dizziness, brain fog, and fatigue are not random. They are interpreted as alarms. Just as a phone alerts you when its battery is critically low, the body and spirit are believed to alert you when they require care. The mistake many make, according to this script, is dismissing those alarms until the body is deeply worn down. The chosen one, however, is asked to listen early, to respond, and to prepare before the consequences deepen. In practical terms, this means recognizing that health and spiritual growth cannot be separated. When the body is neglected, the spirit is weighed down. When the spirit is ignored, the body reflects that neglect through fatigue, illness, or lack of vitality. This interconnection is at the heart of the message. Transformation is holistic. It involves physical nourishment, mental clarity, emotional healing, and spiritual renewal, all working together. The narrative also emphasizes the importance of timing. The call to act now is not meant as panic, but as urgency. Delay, it suggests, only prolongs fatigue and confusion. Just as opportunities in life often appear within windows that eventually close, so too does the opportunity for transformation. The chosen one is urged not to wait until the symptoms become unbearable. The earlier one acts, the smoother the journey of renewal becomes. Another important feature of this stage is the reframing of so-called laziness. Within the traditional view, feeling sluggish or unmotivated is often judged as a personal weakness. But here, it is described as a sacred pause. Just as a caterpillar enters stillness before transformation, or as fields lie fallow before a stronger harvest, the chosen one is reminded that periods of low energy may actually signal preparation rather than failure. This reframing encourages compassion toward oneself during times of exhaustion. Instead of harsh judgment, it calls for understanding that the body and soul may be redirecting energy toward deeper internal work. In this light, so-called laziness is seen as an early indicator of transformation. It is not a permanent state, but a temporary recalibration. It signals that energy is being redirected inward to break down old patterns, heal wounds, and prepare space for growth. The Chosen One is urged not to fight this stage, but to lean into it with trust, recognizing that stillness often precedes renewal. As the script develops, it also emphasizes the symbolic importance of preparation. A 15 to 20-day period is presented as the necessary window for transition. This is not portrayed as superstition, but as structure. In many traditions, 15 to 20 days represent cycles of discipline long enough to shift habits, but short enough to remain achievable. It is a practical time frame for reorienting choices, testing commitment, and laying the foundation for lasting change. During this period, the Chosen One is encouraged to approach daily meals and routines as sacred rituals rather than ordinary tasks. This reframing transforms nourishment into participation. Every spoonful of broth, every portion of grains, every taste of honey becomes not only fuel for the body, but also a symbolic act of alignment. It is a visible choice to honor the body as a vessel, to respect the signals it sends, and to partner with the divine in the process of renewal. The script concludes this first segment by reiterating the connection between obedience and breakthrough. Obedience here is not about fear, but about alignment. It is the recognition that when the body calls for renewal and the spirit calls for attentiveness, the Chosen One must respond with action rather than hesitation. The foods described, honey, sacred grains, and bone broth, are symbols of this obedience. They represent the choice to listen, to act, and to prepare for transformation. This is why the message insists: the time for waiting is over. Transformation is not passive. It requires conscious action. To delay is to risk deepening exhaustion. To obey is to step into renewal. The Chosen One is thus placed at a crossroads, invited to embrace sacred nourishment as both a physical and spiritual practice that prepares the body and soul for breakthrough. The second part of this narrative builds upon the foundation already laid. Having introduced the importance of listening to the body's signals and aligning physical nourishment with spiritual awareness, the script now shifts into the deeper implications of this transformation. The Chosen One is reminded that change is not limited to health or diet. It extends into mindset, relationships, purpose, and legacy. Nourishment is only the entry point. The real outcome of this process is a complete reorientation of life. One of the central themes in this continuation is that of rebirth. In neutral terms, rebirth refers to a moment where past patterns are dissolved and a new identity begins to emerge. For many people, these turning points arrive after a season of exhaustion, confusion, or even failure. The script reframes those experiences not as wasted struggles, but as necessary contractions, similar to labor before birth. It is acknowledged that exhaustion, brain fog, and low motivation can feel discouraging, but within this perspective, they are treated as indicators that the old self is being dismantled so a new version can be formed. This idea of rebirth is both symbolic and practical. Symbolically, it means shedding limiting beliefs, fears, and emotional burdens. Practically, it means creating space for new habits, improved health, and a renewed sense of purpose. When the Chosen One participates in the practices of nourishment and reflection, they are not merely consuming food, they are stepping into a symbolic passageway, a transition from old patterns to new realities. The process is also described as multidimensional. It affects not just the physical body, but the mind, spirit, and even relationships. On a physical level, the Chosen One experiences increased energy, clearer thinking, and better health. On a mental level, they notice sharper focus and reduced anxiety. On a spiritual level, they feel more aligned, connected, and purposeful. On a relational level, they begin to notice shifts as their renewed energy influences those around them. These layers together create a holistic transformation. A key point emphasized here is that transformation is not meant to be comfortable. Just as athletes endure strenuous training or students face long hours of study before success, the chosen one must embrace discomfort as a signal of progress. Soreness in the body after exercise does not mean failure, it means growth. Similarly, feelings of restlessness, emotional release, or unusual dreams during this 15 to 20-day period are not setbacks, but signs of deep change occurring beneath the surface. This reframing is critical because many people abandon processes when discomfort arises. The chosen one is urged to interpret discomfort differently, not as punishment, but as evidence that the body and spirit are recalibrating. Fatigue is described as sacred labor, emotional release as sacred cleansing, and temporary confusion as part of a necessary reset. By leaning into these moments with trust rather than resistance, the chosen one ensures that the process unfolds as intended. Another dimension explored is the concept of obedience. In this context, obedience does not mean blind submission, but rather alignment with wisdom and responsiveness to signals. Just as one would heed a doctor's advice or respond to a fire alarm, the chosen one is asked to act upon the signals the body and spirit provide. To ignore them is to risk prolonged stagnation. To respond is to accelerate transformation. This practical framing makes it clear that transformation is a partnership. It requires both divine provision and human participation. The foods outlined earlier, honey, sacred grains, and bone broth, are revisited here as continuing symbols of alignment. Each one serves not only as physical nourishment, but also as metaphorical reinforcement of the chosen one's journey. Honey represents sweetness, healing, and divine favor. Grains represent grounding, cleansing, and strength. Bone broth represents restoration, resilience, and continuity. Together, they form a narrative of preparation, reminding the chosen one that every act of eating becomes a choice to align with transformation rather than resist it. Beyond diet, the script expands into the broader implications of this journey. When physical and spiritual alignment begin to take root, external change follows. Relationships evolve as the chosen one's energy shifts. Opportunities appear as clarity sharpens. Old habits lose their grip as new purpose emerges. This is described not as coincidence, but as natural consequence. When one's inner world transforms, the outer world reflects that change. Relationships are one of the first areas where shifts become noticeable. People who once felt close may seem distant, not out of betrayal, but because of vibrational mismatch. The chosen one is reminded that as they rise into a new frequency of energy and awareness, not all relationships will align with that growth. This can be painful, as it often involves releasing people, environments, or conversations that no longer serve the path ahead. However, the script reframes this as necessary pruning. Just as a gardener trims branches so a tree can bear more fruit, life trims connections so that growth can continue unhindered. At the same time, new relationships and opportunities often appear. The chosen one may notice that people who share similar values, goals, or energies begin to arrive. These new connections provide encouragement, inspiration, and collaboration. This is presented as a natural flow. As old connections fall away, new ones form that are more aligned with the chosen one's renewed identity. In terms of mindset, the transformation is equally profound. Mental fog, indecision, and self-doubt are replaced by clarity, confidence, and focus. This is not portrayed as instant perfection, but as gradual improvement. Small decisions become easier, goals become clearer, and distractions lose their pull. The chosen one begins to live with intention rather than reaction. Instead of being tossed about by circumstances, they gain a sense of agency and direction. This clarity also extends into purpose. For many, the idea of purpose can feel vague or overwhelming. But the script emphasizes that purpose is not about grand gestures or immediate perfection. It begins with alignment in daily choices. By nourishing the body, respecting rest, honoring signals, and remaining consistent, the chosen one builds a foundation upon which greater purpose can unfold. Small acts of obedience and attentiveness accumulate into a lifestyle of purpose. Another feature of this phase is the idea of magnetism. As the chosen one aligns physically and spiritually, they naturally begin to attract what matches their energy. Instead of chasing opportunities, they notice opportunities beginning to approach them. Instead of forcing connections, they find themselves drawn into spaces and relationships that fit their renewed identity. This magnetism is framed as the byproduct of authenticity. When you live in alignment, life reflects that alignment back to you. The script also touches on the importance of faith during this stage. Faith is not portrayed here as blind optimism, but as trust in the process. Just as a farmer trusts that seeds planted will eventually yield a harvest, even when the soil looks empty, the chosen one is asked to trust that their efforts will bear fruit in time. Faith, in this context, becomes the anchor that holds steady during periods when results are not yet visible. This call to faith is paired with responsibility. The chosen one is reminded that transformation is not for personal benefit alone, but for the benefit of others as well. As they grow stronger, more focused, and more resilient, they are better able to serve, inspire, and uplift others. Transformation is described as both personal and communal. It prepares individuals to contribute positively to families, communities, and society at large. An important caution is included here: the temptation to fall back into old habits. Just as a newly planted tree can wither without care, transformation can stall if neglected. The chosen one is encouraged to remain consistent even after visible changes begin to appear. This means continuing to nourish the body with wholesome food, practicing rest and reflection, and maintaining alignment through daily decisions. Consistency ensures that transformation is not temporary, but lasting. As Part 2 develops, it emphasizes the visible signs of transformation. The chosen one may notice renewed energy, clearer skin, brighter mood, and increased productivity. Others around them may begin to comment on their glow, their calmness, or their confidence. These outward signs are not the goal, but the evidence of inner renewal. They serve as encouragement, reminders that the process is working, and testimonies that inspire others. The closing sections of this part highlight the broader impact of transformation. When one individual embraces renewal, it creates ripples. Families notice, communities notice, and even strangers can feel the difference in presence and energy. The chosen one is reminded that their transformation is not private. It influences and inspires others who may be searching for their own breakthrough. In this way, obedience and alignment extend far beyond the self. The narrative concludes Part 2 by returning to its central theme: attentiveness. The body, the mind, and the spirit continually send signals. Ignoring them prolongs stagnation. Responding to them accelerates growth. Honey, sacred grains, and bone broth are not magical solutions, but symbolic and practical tools of alignment. They represent the choice to respect one's body, to fuel one's spirit, and to partner with transformation rather than resist it. Transformation is holistic, continuous, and available to those willing to act. The chosen one is left with this reminder: Breakthroughs are not accidents. They are the result of preparation, attentiveness, and alignment. The time for waiting is over. The time for participation is now. The final stage of this script brings everything into perspective. After exploring the signals the body sends, the significance of sacred nourishment, and the profound transformation that follows obedience to those signals, the closing message emphasizes sustainability, responsibility, and legacy. Transformation is not an isolated event. It is an ongoing process that shapes both present reality and future outcomes. The Chosen One is reminded that breakthrough is not only about the moment of awakening, but also about how that awakening is carried forward into daily life. Many individuals experience powerful shifts only to return to old habits once the initial excitement fades. The key, therefore, is to move beyond short-term inspiration into long-term integration. The foods, practices, and disciplines outlined earlier serve not only as catalysts but as foundations. They provide a starting point, but the journey continues through consistency. At this point, the Chosen One is asked to reflect on their environment. Transformation is far more effective when supported by surroundings that align with new priorities. Just as a plant flourishes in healthy soil with sunlight and water, individuals thrive when surrounded by positive influences, supportive relationships, and structures that encourage growth. This may mean reorganizing routines, setting clearer boundaries, or creating spaces for rest and reflection. In neutral terms, it is about designing a life that matches the renewed self. Sustainability also requires balance. The temptation in seasons of breakthrough is to push too hard or expect immediate perfection. Yet transformation, while powerful, still requires pacing. The Chosen One is reminded that progress is not about never facing setbacks, but about consistently returning to alignment after them. A missed day, a moment of doubt, or a lapse in discipline is not failure. It is an opportunity to realign, to step back into the process with renewed commitment. This perspective prevents discouragement. Too often, people abandon journeys because they expect perfection rather than persistence. By embracing persistence, the Chosen One ensures that transformation remains alive, even when challenges arise. Just as an athlete returns to training after injury, or as a musician returns to practice after mistakes, the Chosen One is encouraged to return to alignment repeatedly, building resilience and strength with each step. Another theme in this final section is stewardship. Transformation is not only for personal benefit, it is entrusted for a larger purpose. The renewed energy, clarity, and focus gained through sacred nourishment and obedience equip the Chosen One to contribute meaningfully to others. Whether through family, community, or larger social impact, the benefits of personal growth extend outward. This is why the script emphasizes responsibility. Blessings, once received, are to be used wisely, not wasted, hidden, or taken for granted. Stewardship requires humility. Even as outward signs of transformation, such as clearer energy, brighter presence, or increased opportunities, become visible, the Chosen One is reminded that these are not for pride or comparison. They are evidence of alignment, intended to inspire and uplift, not to elevate one person above another. Humility ensures that transformation remains grounded, authentic, and impactful. The script also frames this journey as intergenerational. The choices made today influence not only current well-being, but also future outcomes for families and communities. Nourishment, discipline, and attentiveness build legacies. A healthier body, a clearer mind, and a focused spirit contribute to longevity and resilience, qualities that ripple into future generations. The Chosen One is urged to recognize this broader significance. Transformation is not a private story, but a collective inheritance. In practical terms, this means embracing habits that can be maintained and shared, teaching children about wholesome food, modeling discipline in routines, demonstrating resilience in challenges. These are all ways the Chosen One passes transformation forward. Legacy is built not only through wealth or reputation, but through the consistent example of a life lived in alignment. Another key insight offered here is that transformation involves both release and embrace. Old patterns, relationships, and beliefs that no longer serve must be released to make space for renewal. At the same time, new practices, connections, and perspectives must be embraced. This dual movement, letting go and receiving, is what ensures growth. Without release, old weight drags the Chosen One backward. Without embrace, opportunities for new life remain missed. Together, release and embrace form the rhythm of sustained transformation. The final message also emphasizes the importance of gratitude. Gratitude anchors transformation by shifting focus from what is lacking to what has been gained. Each day of renewed energy, each moment of clarity, and each sign of progress becomes a reason for thanks. Gratitude not only sustains motivation, but also amplifies the benefits of transformation, deepening joy and strengthening resilience. In professional terms, gratitude serves as both feedback and reinforcement, ensuring that the Chosen One remains aware of progress and committed to continuation. As this narrative closes, the Chosen One is left with a clear summary. The bodies. Signals are not random. They are invitations to alignment. Foods such as honey, sacred grains, and bone broth are not merely nutritional choices, but symbols of attentiveness and obedience. The 15 to 20-day period of discipline is not superstition, but a practical structure for transformation. The process involves discomfort, release, and reorientation, but it leads to renewal that is visible both inwardly and outwardly. The transformation described is holistic, touching body, mind, spirit, and relationships. It is sustained through consistency, humility, and gratitude. It is shared through stewardship and legacy. And it positions the Chosen One not merely to survive, but to thrive, becoming a beacon of inspiration to others. The final charge is simple. Do not delay. The signals have already sounded. The invitation has already been given. To wait is to prolong fatigue and confusion. To act is to embrace renewal and breakthrough. The Chosen One stands at a crossroads. The choice is clear. Nourish the body, honor the spirit, and walk forward into transformation. In this way, the script ends where it began, with attentiveness to the body's cries, but it expands into a complete vision of sustainable, responsible, and purposeful living. It leaves the Chosen One with both encouragement and accountability. Encouragement that transformation is possible and already underway. Accountability that transformation requires active participation, persistence, and humility. The message is not one of fear, but of invitation. It is not a burden, but an opportunity. And it is not only about today, but about the lasting impact that will echo through generations. For the Chosen One, this is more than a moment. It is the beginning of a renewed life.